The government is not going to ride in on a white horse to save you when global events hit the fan, Michael Snyder reports. Did you know that FEMA is not answering nearly half of the calls that it receives from those seeking disaster relief in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene? This amazing fact is being reported by Politico, and it shocked me to the core when I first read it. If the federal government responds this poorly to a hurricane, what's going to happen when we're facing a major long-term emergency that affects the entire nation? And as I've consistently warned for years, you should not be counting on the government to come riding in on a white horse to rescue you when global events hit the fan. Unfortunately, global events may hit the fan a lot sooner than most people think. Politico spoke to a man named Mike Toomey in North Carolina that desperately needs help after floodwaters destroyed his home. When Toomey called FEMA last week, nobody answered his call. Instead, he got a recording that informed him that he was 675th in the line to be helped. Mike Tooney called a federal helpline last week to get disaster aid after Hurricane Helene flooded his home in western North Carolina. He got a recording instead. They said, "I was 675th in line," Toomey, a painter in a splattered shirt, recalled as he waited outside a federal recovery center in Hendersonville. Hurricane Helene hit North Carolina over a month ago, and people like Toomey still can't get help from FEMA even though they're reaching out. In fact, Politico says that hundreds of thousands of people have not been able to get the assistance from government that they were hoping for. Hundreds of thousands of people who were trying to recover from disasters nationwide have been unable to get through to federal call centers or have stayed on hold for excessive periods of time in the week since Helene barreled into southern Appalachia last month. Overwhelmed by Helene and Hurricane Milton, the centers failed to answer nearly half of the incoming phone calls over the course of 1 week recently. For the calls that were answered, it took more than an hour for federal workers to pick up on average. This was the worst federal response to a major natural disaster that I have ever seen. I honestly don't know how to explain it. At one time, most federal agencies exhibited at least a minimal level of competence, but those days appear to be long gone. In addition to not getting hundreds of thousands of people to help that they desperately need, it also is being reported that hundreds of roads are still closed in North Carolina. Hundreds of roads in North Carolina remain closed or damaged as Americans try to recover in the aftermath of flooding from Hurricane Helene, according to the New York Times. Many of the roads have been washed away or severely damaged by the floodwaters that stranded people in remote areas of the state, the newspaper reported on Saturday. Some of the roadways and portions of major highways have been reopened, the Times reported, but as of early Saturday, there were just over 700 incident reports noting a portion of roads still listed as closed, impassable, or otherwise affected by the storm. What in the world is taking them so long? You would think that opening up the roads would be one of the top priorities, but at this point, we're being told that it could take months to even get Interstate 40 back to full operation. Bringing Interstate 40, as well as many other highways and roads back to full capacity, is likely to take months as well as hundreds of millions of dollars, though officials cautioned it was too early to make formal estimates. We used to be a country that worked harder than anyone else. And now we're being run by a bunch of bureaucrats that like to stand around and talk instead of taking action. After everything that we have witnessed in North Carolina, there should be no doubt about what will happen when a truly apocalyptic national emergency comes along. And that may occur a lot sooner than most people think because war is here. In the Middle East, the Iranians are preparing for a major attack against Israel. Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, instructed his forces to prepare direct events against Israel. And while he's attempting to downplay to the public the extent of Israel's attacks on Tehran facilities, privately he green-lighted plans for counterattack in a meeting with Supreme National Security Council three Iranian officials told New York Times. He's allegedly made his decision Monday after reviewing the damage report from his military officials. Israel has publicly warned that it will protect itself even harder, and it appears that this war in the Middle East could soon take an apocalyptic turn, and that would have major implications for the entire planet. Meanwhile, those living in the European Union have been instructed to stockpile emergency supplies in case a direct conflict with Russia breaks out. People living in the European Union should stockpile emergency supplies in the event of war breaking out or another major emergency, a new report advises. The report on Europe's civilian and military preparedness, published on Wednesday, was written by former Finnish President Sauli Niinisto in his capacity as special advisor to the President of the European Commission. The report notes that the EU was not prepared for either COVID-19 pandemic or Russian aggression against Ukraine, and that it needs to move from reaction to proactive preparedness. As I warned to my core supporters on Friday, we're closer to a nuclear war with Russia than we have ever been before. If missiles start falling on U.S. soil, there will be absolutely no help from the federal government. You will be on your own. Speaking of nuclear conflict, North Korea just tested a new ICBM that has enough range to easily reach the continental United States. Pyongyang officials have since identified the massive rocket, which they dubbed the world's strongest strategic missile, as a new Hwasong-19 ICBM, given that nuclear warhead capability ICBMs can reach several thousands of miles away. Such as a missile would have the capacity of hitting continental United States, and the timing has not been lost to anyone, as it was a mere days before the U.S. presidential election. 2024 has been a year of war, but in 2025 we're going to see things go to an entirely new level, it appears. If you're blindly trusting that our government officials have everything under control, you're not being wise because they don't. When war comes to U.S. soil, what are we going to do? Are you going to be counting on federal government to bring you food and supplies and everything else that you need? When things go sideways, the federal government is not going to be there for you. At this point, they can't even take care of the areas of the country that were devastated by Hurricane Helene. And there are many that are trying to sound the alarms about what's coming, but most of the population is simply not listening. And this is on End of the American Dream by Michael Snyder. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. About the author, Michael Snyder's new book, Why, is available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 8 other books available on Amazon, including Chaos, End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecy of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News, and he always freely, happily allows others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.